Hello and welcome to FireDEV, a fireside chat with people in the industry. And today I've got software engineer Kirill Kochnev. And I just want to welcome Kirill to the podcast and thank you for being here. Do you want to do a brief introduction?
Yes, hello. Thanks a lot for invitation. Very glad to be a part of this podcast. What I can tell you about myself. I am living in London right now for almost 3 years. I moved here from St. Petersburg, Russia, and my current place of work is Amazon. I'm a software engineer in Alexa Shopping. So I can give, I think, more details later on it. Yeah. My
Yes, that's
previous
right.
place of work also was Goldman Sachs. I was also backend software engineer there, and also in parallel, I was able to create a startup with my partner in New York. But unfortunately, we went bankrupt at that time, so I'm not a millionaire. Unfortunately, just a software developer right now.
Not a millionaire yet. I'm sure there's still
Yes.
time. Okay, so starting off, so you're in London now. How are you finding that compared to Russia?
Oh, it's a very good question. Depends what you want to compare. So, for example, in my opinion, weather in London is much better than in St. Petersburg. But if you ask, local citizen about weather, they all will cry and complain a lot.
Yes.
But for me, it's like a super cool weather. I feel myself self very comfortable here. In terms of prices and other, London, of course, is more expensive than St. Petersburg. Yeah, so it is a problem. And the city is, I would say, in a big demand. So it's very hard to find a good property to rent, which was a real issue for me when I moved here.
Oh yeah, I can imagine because I lived in London from 2012 to 2013. It was
Hmm.
while I was at university, did a placement year because I went to university in Leicester, but then I did a placement year at a company called Accenture in London, and I remember it was because obviously I couldn't really easily get down there, and my uncle that lived in London, he just quickly went around, looked at a couple of places, and they were just going really fast, so I just had to make a quick decision, found
Hmm.
one. It wasn't the best. Met in one of my best friends whilst I was living there, so I'm happy about that. But we both wanted a new place. He was at uni in his final year of uni. I was doing the placement, and we were out to basically get out of our contract as long as they could find someone else to rent it, which they found straight away, so they didn't have an issue. But I remember
Yeah,
when we were
okay.
looking at for other places and we was viewing them ourselves, and we would view them, that they would be terrible places. You could just see they were not very good, not in the best location, and then they would say, do you want it or not? Because you'll be gone by tomorrow. And literally, if you'd ring, it was gone, the next day or the same day. So there was just so much demand. Luckily, we found one at a decent price. Location wasn't too bad, so we actually, we got lucky. The reason we found and got this one is because the person that was was moving out in about, I think, 2 months or something along those lines. And that's roughly how much notice or something like that we had to give for our existing one. So it lined up. Otherwise, it would have, gone like that. Yeah, trying to get a place there and 10 years on, it's even more expensive and it's even harder.
Yeah. So I completely, I can understand you and your problem. Yeah. And
Yeah.
another thing I forgot to mention is the food. Actually, it is a little bit different from Russia, for example. So for example, Indian kitchen is very popular in London. In Russia, it
It
is
is.
not very popular, and stuff like that. So you need to create your food menu again. I would say for uh, for dinner or for lunch, etc. So, but it's quite interesting.
Yeah. How have you have you got used to the different cuisines available compared to being over in Russia, or are you still getting used to it?
No, I can say that I like it now. So first of all, I reopened Asian kitchen for me. I must say that in London you have a very good Vietnamese restaurants and restaurants with food like that. So like ramen, Japanese, yes. So you will find a very good places with that. So yeah, I'm right now I can say that I like the food in UK. Also, I found out that there are few local dishes that are quite nice. Even fish and chips in 3 years became for me a good food. I don't know why. Initially, I hated it, and I did not understand why British people like this food. But
Everyone
now,
loves it here.
yeah, but now, for example, when you're sitting in the bar and you order fish and chips with Guinness, for example, it's a good meal.
Yeah, like for fish and chips, and there's plenty of places that don't serve you good fish and chips, especially the fish bar. But if
Yeah,
you find those few places that serve you really good fish and chips, the crunchiness, of the fish, the batter on
yeah, yeah,
there, the chips, it is really nice. And obviously because you're living in London, there's so much. I think you basically alluded to it. There is so much variety. I'm guessing you probably could find some more authentic Russian food as well if you wanted to.
yeah, yeah. There are some places with Russian food, but Russian food is not, I would say, global. Yeah, like Indian, for example.
No, no,
So there are restaurants in London. They're really good, but it is not, the amount of restaurants is not high as, for example, the amount of Japanese restaurants or
no, of course
Vietnamese. Yeah.
not. Yeah,
So yeah.
but I bet you the Russian ones are probably a bit more authentic to the original Russian experience, whereas I can't comment on the Japanese ones. But I know because I'm Pakistani and the Indian takeaways. I know a lot of their dishes are actually tailor made for British people. They're variations of what you would get back home, or just completely new ones with some obviously inspiration. So I'm guessing with the Russian ones, because they're probably not as popular, they're probably a bit more authentic. I'm just guessing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think you're right. And the price is also much higher than in Russia
Yes,
to be in line with
obviously,
London.
yeah, obviously, it's London prices. So yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I remember when I went London, I was just shocked at how much just stuff, like food and drink costs, like how easily you can spend 20, 30 quid and not get hardly anything.
Yes, yes. So the minimum bill that I have in any grocery store is no less than 20 or 30 pounds. So you
Mm.
can't bought anything smaller than this than this amount of money. So it's
And I'm guessing you don't
really
get
amazing.
that much either for 20, 30
Yeah,
pounds.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Probably like
So
a
it's not,
bag.
not a lot, not a lot.
No,
Yeah.
not a lot, no. Okay, and how have you found? Because obviously living in London, I'm guessing you use the underground to commute.
Yes, I'm using underground and trains. Yeah, but right now I think you're aware that there are a lot of strikes
There are, yes.
because of it. Yes, so it is not very convenient. But London, I would say, still one of the best cities. I mean, for living without a car, for example. So it's really comfortable in
Oh
these
yeah,
ways.
they've done a good job. If you don't have a car, and fairness, even I know a lot of people that have cars and they only use them when they leave London. Otherwise, they use the underground because it just takes too long. Trying to find parking and the London drivers as well. That's
Hmm.
another thing you obviously have to deal with if you are driving. So yeah, the underground does make it really convenient. And once you
Yeah,
get like an Oyster card and get a pass, it's not that expensive.
yeah, that's not yes, and you can get from any place of the city to another one. So I would
Yeah,
say that
pretty quickly as well. It's not too bad, so which is
yeah,
good.
because of it, I think a lot of people are really frustrated because of these strikes.
Yeah, I can imagine, especially people that have lived there their whole life, and
Yes.
using the underground is just normal to them. It's like breathing.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Okay, so talking about work, you worked at Red Mad Robot. What did you do
Yes.
there, and how did you come about getting a job there?
So Red Mat Robot, it is my first job in St. Petersburg. Actually, the process of interview was quite straightforward at the time. So the HR manager wrote me. So sorry. Let me start from the beginning. First of all, I knew a lot about this company because in Russian community it is a very popular one, and they always participate in some IT conferences and stuff like that. They have some open source. Redmond Robot has some open source libraries that I used and things like that. So yeah, it is a good place for work. And in LinkedIn, actually, HR manager wrote me and offered me to pass an interview. So yeah, I decided why not. At that moment, I used to live in Novosibirsk. It is my city of origin. So yeah, I decided to try. There were few steps. Several steps. Uh, First of it was, let me remember, it was not a task. So yeah, so it was a test task. Yes, at that moment it was popular. So they sent me um, some Android task, and I needed to solve it like in 1 or 2 week and send them back. After that, they reviewed it, left some comments, and told me that it was a good implementation. And let's speak on the second interview. And second interview was just a technical one. So I spoke with the guy who was a technical lead of Android team, and with CTO too, because it was not a very big company. CTO also took part in technical interviews. Uh, yeah, so after that, I got a job offer. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
good. And like, what sort of technologies did you use at Red Mad Robot?
So I was a pure Android developer there. So technologies were at that time. So we moved from Java to Kotlin because Google announced that Kotlin will be the main language for Android at that moment, and actually started creating a lot of libraries to support it. So we were definitely interested in it because I was a fan. Sorry, I am still a fan, yes, of Kotlin, and almost all new projects we started with it. All old project we moved to the Kotlin lang. This was a main technology. Another one of the main technologies at that moment for Android was RX Java. It is called. It is the library and I would say programming style, reactive programming, yeah. And it was very popular, at least in Russian community of Android developers at that moment. So we were using it a lot. Um, so yeah, I would say this was the main tech stacks like Java, Kotlin, RX Java as a library, and some Android core libraries, of course. Yeah. Uh,
Okay. And how did you find, Kotlin? Because that's, relatively new compared to Java. Java's been around for a long while. How did you find that compared to using Java?
so it's first of all, I will give a brief introduction. Yes, so Kotlin was invented by the company JetBrains. Everyone who knows Java and working on it, yes, probably with a high probability will is using IntelliJ IDE. It is a product of JetBrains. So JetBrains knew a lot about Java problems and what Java developers were facing, and they decided to create a language that will be fully compatible with Java. And when they introduced it, IntelliJ IDE also had a full support of it. So for me, for example, to start using Kotlin was very easy because Development tools are the same. Build tools are the same, like Gradle, for example, Gradle scripts and etc. You don't need to learn something new. And Kotlin lang is fully compatible with Java. So if you need to call a Java method, you can do it from Kotlin. Even if you want to call Kotlin method from Java, it is quite easy to do. So the learning curve, in my opinion, is super small. If, for example, if to compare it with another popular language, Scala, yeah, which is also JVM based language, but still the learning curve is much bigger than for Kotlin.
Okay. So
So
have you used Swift before on iOS?
no, Swift it is iOS thing, so I have never tried it.
Yeah, so obviously, for the listeners out there, it's kind of a similar vein to Swift, where Swift replaced the old Objective C language, which was, from an era that had long gone. Kotlin is, replacing Java, but
Yeah,
you can, in Swift you can use Objective C code, and vice versa. You can call the code. So I'm guessing it made it a lot easier because you were saying you were porting a lot of libraries. It meant that you could use existing libraries whilst you was updating them instead of having to recreate every single one of them, test
yeah,
them,
yeah.
and only then.
Of course. So, for example, even for backend developer, yes. So, for example, our startup, which I was part of, we used Kotlin and Spring. Obviously, yeah, we did not rewrite Spring for in Kotlin lang. Yes, we just attached Spring libraries, Java libraries, yes, and reused the function of Spring in Kotlin. So JetBrains really did good with interop of Java and Kotlin.
Okay, and
They, by the way,
obviously, yeah.
JetBrains is originally in St. Petersburg company. By the way,
Oh, is it?
yeah,
I
yes.
didn't know that.
Uh, I would say it is a company that we can be proud of.
Oh yeah, it's definitely one of those big companies, and if like you were saying, if you're into Java or Android development, you're going to have used IntelliJ probably because before Google had Android Studio, I remember
Yeah.
when you would use IntelliJ to do
Yes. Yes.
the development, and obviously now I just go to Android Studio and it works really well. But I remember when there was a time you had to use IntelliJ, so yeah, it's definitely a company that a lot of developers have heard of. I'm guessing it's pretty well known then in St. Petersburg amongst the community.
Yes. Of course. Of course. So they have, they had a very good office, in very good place. They helped several universities to create master degrees in computer science and etc. So they contributed a lot in to education and in IT community in common in general.
Okay, that's good to hear. Okay, so you've been, mainly focusing on Android, it seems, from what you've said, and on your LinkedIn page. Why, predominantly Android compared to going into iOS as well?
Oh, so there are several reasons for that. First of all, I pretty much against, let's say, Apple iPhones. I don't understand this huge price for for this phone and etc. Another thing, if you study in university, it's actually quite expensive to buy, MacBook, iPhone, and start developing on it. So usually you will have some cheap, I don't know, Dell notebook or Lenovo or something like that, and you will have some not super expensive Android phone, and it is enough to start investigating how to develop a code, how to work with Android platform, and etc. So to become an iOS developer, you need to be able to buy Apple tools. Yes, so because of it, for example, when I was in university and straight after it, I was playing around with Android because it was just easy and cheaper for me, and because also one of the also important part is that Android it is like Unix-like system, I would say. Yes, so it was based on Linux, So, and I a fan of Linux. For example, I have an Fedora right now on my laptop while we're speaking. Yes, so for me it was an obvious choice.
Okay.
And also another one important thing that it is Java. It is not Objective C. So I would say that iOS developers, they are very isolated. At least at that time, they were very isolated. They lived in their own world, and Java was used not only for Android. It was used for backend. It was used for a lot of stuff, to be honest. Yes. So Linux is also is some global thing. So, and a lot of open source libraries and activity were down on Android, at least at that time. I think things were changed, yeah, but at that time I felt like that. uh,
Yeah, I mean, those are valid points with Android, especially because you're getting into, obviously, the JetBrains stuff with IntelliJ and all the other tools. They're usable beyond Android, whereas Xcode, you're mainly going to be, you're just going to be using it for, Apple development. You're not going to create an Android app in Xcode. You're not going to create a Windows app in
mhm.
Xcode, whereas you could do that with JetBrains tools. You could create it for the platforms, especially when you have a language like Java that is, portable onto different systems. So yeah, and like you said, the barrier to entry from a price perspective, totally true. A MacBook costs, starting price is £1,000,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
for that price, you could get a Windows machine. Again, not the fastest one, but you could get one. You could get an Android phone, and I mean, yeah, and a tablet as well if you wanted to. So if you wanted to test on, a tablet and a phone, you could do that for the price of, a MacBook. So yeah, the barrier to entry, like you're saying, for students, is definitely something that is worth considering. And the people that I see that go into the iOS route are the ones that are heavily invested in the Apple ecosystem. They have an iPhone, they use iCloud, they have Apple TV,
Hmm, hmm,
they
yeah.
have all those things. So to them, it's just getting one extra thing because they're already in the ecosystem.
Yeah, and another important thing that AOSP, yes, Android itself, it is open sourced. So
Mm.
if you are interested in how it works, you can just go, let's say, on GitHub, yes, do git clone and check how it works inside. So how it works inside. So I don't think that iOS, at least at that time, was open sourced. I'm pretty much sure that it is a system. Yes, source code is not in public.
Yeah, for iOS is a closed system. So yeah, it is definitely one of those things that if you do want to get into the nuts and bolts of the way it works, potentially even modifying it for some personal projects, or you could download it, create your own company, try and create your own OS or flavor of OS or devices. You could do that in the Android route, and you see that from even big companies. They don't create their own. They get Android, they get Linux, and they modify that. Swift is an open source language. They did end up open sourcing that one. I think they realized it just wasn't worth keeping it closed, so they ended up open sourcing it. But I mean, I have not heard of any major applications that are made using Swift that are not published for the Apple devices, even though it is supported on Linux, for example, and I think maybe some sort of way on Android, but you generally just don't see it.
Yeah, I think there was a Swift community that created some backend solution based on Swift. So you could build some backend application with Swift. But I don't know if it is heavily used. Is it heavily used in production right now? So yeah, but I
Yeah,
heard that there are a lot of fans of Swift, and they try to adapt it.
yeah, like so Swift. If you're an iOS developer, it's no brainer. I mean, I
Hmm,
was just doing a bit of Swift development today, and I remember because I got into using Objective C back
hmm.
in 2008, so a good while ago. So when the App Store first came out, that's when I got into it, and Objective C is just so awkward, so hard, and it's just it's a square brackets everywhere, plus and
Yeah.
minuses. It's just like what's even going on. And where Swift, it's just cleaner. It works better, looks nicer, and combined with the newer Xcode IDE and Swift UI, it just works a lot nicer. So yeah, Swift. If you're and I had somebody on this podcast last week that used to be who's an iOS developer that used to use Objective C, moved over to Swift about probably a year or so after it came out. Once
Hmm.
a few libraries came out, and he says he's never looked back and he's never used Objective C code once
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
since then.
Makes sense.
So definitely, if you're looking to get into iOS and you want native and you don't want to do cross-platform like Flutter, and you're already in there, then Swift is definitely worth checking out. Just likewise, if you're in Android, definitely check out Kotlin. I think if you're going new into it, having Java knowledge won't hurt, but it's not really essential. You can just go straight to Kotlin.
Yes, I think for Android development right now, you need to go with Kotlin straight away. But if to be honest, I not I don't understand why the sometimes people put requirement. For example, you are looking for Android developer, and there is a strong requirement that you must know Kotlin. So because it is quite strange. If you know Android platform and you know Java, to start writing with Kotlin, it is the matter of 1 week. So sometimes in job description, I'm a little bit surprised when employer requires to know Kotlin, yeah. So this is kind of thing I don't understand, but market is market.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've seen that a lot. Like iOS developer roles, they're heavily saying Swift. I see a bunch of iOS developer roles, and they're saying Swift, Swift, Swift. And then see Android roles, and they're constantly asking for Kotlin. I'm guessing their logic is just want somebody to come start working and have no issues at all. Because I feel like some people, even though they could learn Kotlin, because they just might love Java or Objective C so much, they don't want to switch. So if they find someone that's already, knows Kotlin or Swift and has switched already, it's a lot easier of a transition.
Yeah, maybe. But I
Yeah,
thought that in iOS it is a requirement. I mean, Apple encourages every developer to use Swift. So
they
it
do.
is
Yes.
officially. You can't tell anymore that Objective-C is the cool language as an
No,
argument.
no.
I mean, yeah, so with the Kotlin, I think it is the same. So Google also encourages everyone to use it. And the new SDK versions are all written in Kotlin. So when you a Java fan and try to find Android job and persuade that Java is a good choice, it is actually a weird thing. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's an old system and it's clearly working with Kotlin, so
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
want you to use that newer system. And considering how much quicker and how much less code you need to write in a lot of cases,
Hmm.
trying to persuade them to use Java or that Java's better, it's just trying to argue with a brick wall. It's not going to work.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so after you were at a company called Revolut, which is a finance company, what
Hmm.
did you do there, and what technologies did you use? And for anyone that's listening, if you want to give a brief explanation of what Revolut is as well.
Of course. So I think it would be easier to explain for European people, especially. So Revolut, it is a startup, fintech startup. They offer people a very convenient application and debit cards to use. So it is much easier to get this card. It is much easier to exchange currency. Revolut has always good rates usually, and you can send it to the huge. You can send it almost in any country in the world. So at least this is what they are trying to do. And because European market, I mean, because banks in Europe are very old, their application are very old, and if to be honest, not very comfortable in use. Revolut became very popular, and people just start using it heavily. especially if we speak about the migrant groups, because when I came, for example, to UK, it was the easiest choice for me to open a Revolut account, because if I decided to go, say, to Barclays or another high street bank, it would take a lot of time to go to there, prove that I'm a good guy, and ask for the debit card. With Revolut, they have modern processes of how to validate you. You don't need to go to any office. You just do it over internet. Yeah, it's very quick and convenient. Yeah, it is a short introduction of Revolut. I'm still using it, and I'm a very big fan of it.
Okay.
To be honest, yeah. And
How would
mhm,
you, before we go into the question of what you did there and the
mhm,
technologies you use, how would you compare that to PayPal for somebody that's listening? Because, to
mhm.
me, it sounds very much like, okay, it's kind of like PayPal. So, like, how would you
So, and
explain it?
you, I guess, live in the USA, yes? Or no?
No, I live in the UK.
In UK. Okay. So, could you tell me, for example, PayPal is widely used in UK?
Yes. I
Okay.
mean,
Mhm.
it's not that widely used as in a debit card form where you go to the shops. It's mainly online for
Yeah.
purchases.
So, I would say the right comparison with PayPal would be Stripe.
Yeah. Okay.
But Revolut, it is more about retail customers. So they issue card and give you this debit card. Because I have never seen that PayPal, to be honest, if PayPal has their own debit card
I
solution.
think they do, but I've never seen one in person. I think they have some sort of card system from
Hmm.
what I remember, but I've never heard of anyone that I know or seen anyone use it.
Yeah, so it means that maybe they have some issues with it. Yeah, and another big plus of Revolut is that currency exchange is actually very good. It is much better if to compare with high street banks. And when you are not born, for example, in UK and came to it recently, it is very essential that you can send money with a good exchange rate from one country to another. So especially it was also useful for people who like travel a lot. It was the first, target group of customers, tourists. But yeah, if PayPal has, for example, debit card solution, I would say they could be, competitors in uh,
Yeah,
in this
I
market.
mean, I've just had a quick Google. There is
Mhm.
a PayPal, debit card, and it's based off the Mastercard system. I think the other thing with PayPal is, at least for me, I associate it with online transactions. So when I'm doing online, I try and see if there's a place that uses PayPal because I can just press pay with PayPal, logs into my account, and it's as simple. It's just done, and it's just hooked either to my balance or into my bank account, and obviously they have certain protections on there as well. Whereas when I'm in store, I've never thought, I want to use my PayPal.
Mhm, mhm.
So I think there might be that element of people just associating PayPal with online because it was online primarily just for most of its
Yeah,
life.
yeah, it's online process system, yeah. But interesting because I'm not using PayPal. I use usually Google Pay, for example, and my wife, she has a phone. She uses a Apple Wallet in when she wants to buy on something online.
Okay.
So almost all shops, I think, are integrated with Google Pay and Apple Pay right now. But not all, but a lot of them. Yeah. Mm.
Yeah.
So I use PayPal for eBay. For I think
Yes.
for historical reason, eBay uses PayPal only, or you just need to have it.
Primarily, yes, because eBay. I think eBay bought PayPal. I think PayPal may have gone separate again, but yeah, eBay did buy PayPal because, and that's how I think I would say that's the reason why PayPal became as big as it did because it became the primary, method of payment on eBay, which was huge. Like it was bigger than
Hmm.
Amazon, at one point.
Yeah, yeah,
So
makes sense. So yeah, but Revolut it is another way in some. So it is another way how you can pay online. it has a comfortable debit cards. There is a procedure called the know your customer, yeah. And
Yes.
in high street banks, uh, only now they start introducing solution when you can do it all online. Before that, even a year ago, 2 year ago, you have no choice but to come into their office, yeah, show their document, show your face, and etc. With Revolut, you don't need to do it. The onboarding is done via application, so you just upload your photos, your passport, and etc. So yeah, I would say it's still very comfortable way, and I strongly encourage people to use Revolut.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what did you specifically do at Revolut, and what technologies did you use?
Yes, so I started as an Android developer also, and I started in customer experience department. So we were responsible for improving customer experience because it is a startup and it is about money. There are a lot of things that can go wrong, and customers should be able to contact with you. And so, for example, like chat, support chat, some chat bots, FAQ question, FAQ screens, and etc. This is was responsibility of our. These were responsibilities of our team. But after that, I moved to backend position and participated in payments integration team, which is also was very interesting. So we were integrating with Revolut with different systems, with different processing systems or with different transfer systems in different countries. Yeah. So
Okay.
in short, it is like that.
Yeah. And so, what were the most important lessons you learned whilst at Revolut and Red Mad Robot?
Oh, so first of all, it was very big difference because Redmat Robot it is outsourced company. So Redmat Robot at that moment had not any own products. So they were hired. They were hired as an outsourcing company to do something, yes, to implement solutions for their customer. Revolut is quite completely different. It is a product-based company, yes, so they have their own product, and all developers are trying to, uh, improve it, try to build new features, and etc. So in Revolut, you are involved in to the also into the business part partially, yes. So you know how many customers you have, what's going wrong, why it is important, and etc. In Redmat Robot, I was not aware of all these metrics, yes. So I just need to do features. Uh, then it should be checked by test engineers from another company. Then we need to work closely with backend developers from another company, and etc. So it is just a different communication in Revolut and in Redmat Robot. And I personally liked product companies more because you are more involved into the destiny of this business, in my
Oh,
opinion.
yeah. Yeah, and it's a bit more personal as well. Whereas
Yeah,
if you're doing client work, one client comes in and they leave, and another client comes in, and sometimes it can just be the same grind again and again, making a website, making an app. Whereas if you're making your own thing, it don't work. You improve it. You, you, you release a minimum viable product. You're constantly trying to make it better and more optimized. So yeah,
yeah, yeah.
there's definitely merit for that.
But
Okay.
if you want to gain experience, for example, you are just graduated from university, I would say that outsourcing company is the better, could be a better option for you because you can touch a lot of technologies, a lot of different tech stacks. You can try to build a lot of products, a lot of projects from scratch and gain experience quite quickly. Because in a big product company, usually everything is already created. Yes, you just need to onboard into tech stack they already have. You need to find a way how you can improve it and etc. So outsourcing companies usually are more better in case you want to touch several things, several different things.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
You're going to be learning a lot. You mean going from one product to the next product, and uh, compared to working on just your own the company's product. So you might just be working on one little thing and just constantly iterating that. So yeah,
Yeah.
there's definitely merit to that as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so in January 2021, you founded a company called 1520.
Mhm.
You briefly mentioned it at the start. What did 1520 do?
So it was. Mm, do you know Gorilla's company?
Gorilla's company.
Gorillas, or maybe Getir. Let me say like that. So 1520, it is an instant grocery delivery. It
Okay.
was an instant grocery delivery business. So what we were doing, we uh, have a service that so we told our customers that we will deliver products in 15 or 20 minutes, or we will give you products for free.
Okay.
And this idea was very popular at that time, and it is popular right now, if to be honest, because in UK there are several startups who are doing it right now. One of them is Gorillas, another one is Getir. It is a Turkey-based company. It was actually the first one who created this business model, and so I think they're the two biggest in London. And what is the main idea? So you have a dark store. It is called dark store. So you have a dark store. It is a shop, but it is not open for. It is like a basement for your products, and there is a small radius of this dark store, and in this radius you can deliver products from this basement very quickly. And the thing is to build these dark stores around the city, and bring customer this value that customer can order, for example, X, and in 15 minutes you will give it, as it is very comfortable in use, especially in west countries, because usually if you want to order some products, usually you need to wait for 3 days. It's working like that. For example, if you use Ocado, yes, you usually can order food in you can order food today, but it will be delivered in 3 days, for example. That is a difference. So in Russia, it was very popular at that moment, and it is popular right now. And my partner, business partner, he is used to work in one of these companies in Moscow, and then he decided to open the same thing in New York. So he moved there, uh, and starting for looking for a first dark store. I started creating a first MVP solution for our service. Yes, so it was backend and it was front end application at that moment. Yeah, and we started like that. So he found the first dark store in Manhattan. I created MVP with the help of outsource guy, and we raised money on seed round, and we opened more dark stores, and etc etc until we went bankrupt. So
Okay. How much
yeah.
money did you raise then for 1520?
Yes. So we raised $7,800,000 totally.
Okay, so over $7 million.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, so you raised a good, and that was seed round. Did you say?
Yes, it was the seed round.
Okay, so that was a good raise. Like, at what sort of post money valuation was that, if you don't mind me asking?
Uh, Good question, because it was changing among the time. I
Yeah.
think 7 millions that we get. It was our company was valuated 21, I think, million.
Okay.
So it was the initial valuation, and we raised money with this valuation. Yeah. But
Okay.
you should understand. So it is not a usual, for example, IT company. It is more about delivery and products, and because of it, you need to spend a lot money to on renting, for example, on delivery people and etc. So it is not like, I would say, it is not the same when you have IT startup, like let's say a SaaS platform, yeah, and you
Yeah.
raise 7 million. So it is a little bit different. So for SaaS platform, 7 million, it is a huge amount of money. For business which deals with grocery stores, with renting properties, especially in district like Manhattan, it could be not very big amount of money,
Okay.
because you will
And
lose it, you will burn it very quickly.
oh yeah, like you're saying, getting office, getting the warehouses, getting inventory, and delivery drivers, and all of the stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah. So what do you think went wrong? Because you said it didn't succeed. Well,
Yeah.
in hindsight, what would you say?
So if to speak about IT part, almost everything were fine, because we were managed to create quite serious products. So we build our own inventory system. We build two applications in the end. One was for retail customers, one was for delivery drivers. Um, Everything was okay. But I think we made a mistake that we decided to extend business very quickly. So we were operating in New York, and before the next round, we decided that we would open Chicago. Then we opened two dark stores in Chicago, and apparently it went very bad because we don't have enough time to set up good operation stuff there. So it burned a lot of money. Another thing that I will not, go deep into this, but you should trust more to yourself, not to all investors and not to people who wants to buy you, for example. So we were very confident that someone wanted to buy us, that we stopped raising and looking for the money for the round. That was a very big mistake, because that deal went wrong. Yeah, so I
Oh,
would say it is the two main reasons. Yeah.
okay, so there were talks of a buyout, and as a result, you didn't concentrate on a Series A round,
Yes,
and
yes. So we were very confident that everything is fine. That we stopped looking for the new opportunities, and maybe I think that we needed to do better with advertisement stuff. So we burnt a lot of money for example, for Facebook advertisement, for some another marketing stuff, and etc. It is quite expensive, and I think we could do it smarter than we did it.
okay, and like after doing it, like what sort of smarter tips would you give to somebody that's looking into? Because I've used Facebook ads before and not spent much, but I know that the money can easily be spent on there, and you'll get little to no results.
Yes,
So
so this is the first problem. So if you decided to use marketing, first of all, you need to spend some time, because for first obvious choice, especially in West countries, would be to use Facebook. And
yeah,
Facebook has a really clever platform of marketing and advertisement. You need to be really ready, you know how to use it. So you need to spend time of to understand how it working, how is it working, because it use machine learning algorithm, how they are used, how it study on your business, and how it suggests to people your advertisement. It is not very easy, and it is very expensive. So maybe it is not, and especially the first thing I would look at, if no one knows about your product, maybe you don't need to use Facebook right now, because Facebook is usually it usually takes some time to understand how to sell your business to people in Facebook community. So maybe Facebook should not be the first step. Mm, this would be my suggestion. Yeah. Mm, maybe you
Okay.
need to think just about like I don't know, some campaign on the street or things like that. Especially if you are very local. If you are very local, you don't need actually Facebook. So, for example, if you work in one small block in Manhattan, you don't need Facebook to send advertisement to all New York, because only people in that block could use it. Then, yeah. So, what is the point then to pay a huge amount of money for Facebook?
Oh yeah, for sure. Because obviously, a business like yours, 1520, it is all about the locality of deliveries. So someone from London or someone from Hong Kong isn't going to be using it.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
is literally just there. So yeah, definitely getting on the streets, maybe hiring someone just to take have some posters and just walk on the streets, have some free food that they can take, and then as a result talk to them, or they can get a free drink that would cost, I don't know, $2 or $5 or whatever, if they just download the app or whatever it is, if they have to sign up. I think that way you'll probably get a lot of sign-ups possibly.
yeah, yeah. And I would say bloggers are a good example. Local bloggers, for example, they can use your service. Actually, we did it like that. So you can ask bloggers to use your service, so they get a discount. They order through your application and they shoot this experience and tell if it was good or not. It is one. It was a good, I think, approach. Another approach that we did not use at the beginning, but it is also very good, is to integrate actually with someone bigger on in your city. For example, to integrate with very popular bakery, to say that we are delivery, your donuts very quickly, and you can integrate with this bakery, and they can put advertisement of your application, and you will get these clients from these bakeries. So it is a good thing to do.
Oh yeah,
So
for
just
sure. Because especially for people that are from that area and they know that bakery, and they really like the donuts, for example. They want them, but for whatever reason they don't want to go out and get them. If they know there's a way that they can just get them delivered to their house in, I don't know, 15, 20, 10 minutes or wherever, like they're more likely to do it. It's definitely the opportunity for local businesses is definitely one of the obvious ones they should
yeah.
definitely go for. And okay, so you raised all that money. How did you go about raising it? Was you part of some incubator? Did you do a pitch deck?
No.
Or
Yes. So first of all, my business partner, he was a CEO. Yes. So it was his main, let's say, scope of business. And he used to work in McKinsey. He had a very great experience in Moscow with this type of business. So he had, I think he still has his, you know, uh, contact book, his own contact book. So he knows people who do investments in IT and other scopes of business. And we tried to and he and me and I, yeah, we tried to speak directly with different VS companies. So we did not go to like Y Combinator and accelerators like that. For first reason is because they took a huge part of your company when they start helping you, and it was not an option for us, because we know that we need more money than an average IT company, and we because of that we will sell our shares. I mean, not our shares, but we will lose a big part of our company with the first seed round and with the next round. Yes, so it is not like IT company when you can raise money, but you will still have the biggest part in your business, and because you are the main guy, yes, and it was your invention. In this kind of business, you will lose part very quickly because you need a lot of money, as I said, because you burn it quite quickly for the rent and other stuff. So yeah, accelerators. We decided that it is not our path. Yeah.
Okay. And what technologies did you use at 1520?
So for applications, I decided to use Flutter because I really liked this technology. So I have an experience with it. For backend, we went with Kotlin, Spring, and other stuff of backend things like AWS with Postgres and things like that. So we can speak in details if you want. Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Yes.
So, how did you find using Flutter? Uh, what did you think of that framework?
So I think uh, it is a healthy framework, and they did a very good job of befriend Android and iOS widgets and components. And in my personal opinion, it is much faster than React Native, for example. So the application in Flutter, you can really build games, and it will work smooth on both platforms. And there were like CI/CD solutions around Flutter that help you to distribute your application straight away to Google Play or to iOS. I forgot how it's called. Apple Shop, Apple Market. No,
Yeah, the Apple App Store.
App Store. App Store. Yes, sorry, to App Store. So yeah, I decided to go with it, and I still think that it is a very good solution to use. By the way, App Store, I would say it did a great pain. I'm very sorry for iOS developers because they need to work with it. So App Store is very hard uh, to publish your application in App Store. It is a quite hard process, much harder than to do it in Google Play.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, because I've done iOS and Android development before, and yeah, iOS there's just this restriction and this
Yes.
restriction, and you have all the API changes. You have to make sure this thumbnail or this icon is exactly named like this and created like this, and there's just a lot of hassle.
Yeah, and you can't really argue with them. So if they decided to reject one of your new version, it is very hard to persuade them that your new version is safe to use and etc. I understand that they are customer first, but developers face a lot of problems while integrating with it.
Oh yeah, for sure. And okay, so that's 1520. Like you used AWS there.
Yes.
Why did you use AWS compared to some competitive
So first
platform?
of all, our VC investors, they had a good discount on AWS.
Okay.
Second, I had experience with Google Cloud Platform in Revolut, and I decided to go with AWS because at that time, at least in my opinion, AWS were much bigger, and first of all, for several reasons, it was bigger. They had, in my opinion, more comfortable in use API and several solutions that I decided to use, like Postgres. Uh, they have, like RDS service where you can just create Postgres instance, and it will be done safe. It will be done with replicas and etc. So I decided to go with AWS because of that, and another reason was because they're actually cheaper than Google Cloud Platform. That was a surprise for me. And yeah, So these were the two reasons. And documentation also, I would say documentation for AWS services is better than for Google Cloud Platform. At least, it is my personal opinion. Yeah, I can't say for sure, but uh, I I was, it was more comfortable to work with AWS.
Okay. And so after 1520, you
Hmm.
worked at Goldman Sachs as
Yep.
a vice president.
Yep.
How was the interview process for Goldman?
So Goldman Sachs interview process, it is the same as in funk companies. So I had like five, I think, interviews. Yeah, in just 1 second. One, yeah, I had five interviews, and every interview had like algo task when I need to implement some small task for time, yeah, like in lead code, like lead code tasks or something like that. In the end, there was a very big interview for several hours where you ask again algo task, like algorithmic task. Then you asked to design something, and they ask you a lot of question about your design. And then another is to speak about SDLC processes, how it work, what experience do you have, how it worked in your company, what do you think went, what do you think could be done better, and etc. And another one is behavioral with the team lead of the department I was interviewed to. He asked about my motivation, uh, what I like in Goldman Sachs, and it's why I am interested in this position, and etc. Yeah, so I would say all big companies like Goldman Sachs, like Amazon and Google and companies like that, they have pretty much similar process.
Okay, yeah, I've heard that a lot. I had somebody else that works at Amazon last week in America. They actually work
Mhm.
in the games, division. They're working on a upcoming unannounced title. So yeah, they were saying the same thing. It's a long
Mhm.
process. And
Yeah.
what did you specifically do at Goldman? What did you work on?
So I was a backend engineer in securities lending department. It is a quite important department, Goldman Sachs department. What we would so the main aim of this department is to provide Goldman Sachs customers with the inventory that they are looking for. So let's say customers of Goldman Sachs are hedge funds usually, and they need to get some stock. And they will go to Goldman Sachs and ask, hey, can you borrow us this stock, for example, for a few days or something like that? And Goldman Sachs then will go to the supply customers like pension fund and make a connection with them if they have this stock, if and can they lend it to hedge fund, for example. So it is the business like that. And for that service Goldman Sachs charge hedge funds. Yeah, so and it was really interesting in terms of especially business domain, because there were a lot of services and the production environment is super hot. So, for example, if in Revolut I work on payments integration, but they were connected only to retail customers. So for example, you can do something bad with a customer transfer, yeah, but let's say the average transfer would be, let's say, 50 pounds. So it is a not super big problem. But in Goldman Sachs, if you made a mistake in your service, your customer is a hedge fund, and hedge fund is doing deals with you for like millions of dollars. And if you charge if you charge your customer with the wrong value, yeah, or you do a mistake and do something bad, they will lose a lot of money. And because of it, you the code should be very well tested. It is quite hard to do, risky releases and this kind of stuff. So yeah. If something happened, you need to go and investigate very quickly where was a mistake and introduce fix very quickly and etc. So production environment are very hot in Goldman Sachs.
Okay. And what technologies did you use while start Goldman?
So it is quite traditional for all banks. It is Java. Also, it goes with Java, Spring, uh, and they use proprietary databases like Oracle databases. They don't use Postgres, at least in my department. So Oracle and IBM, these kind of things. I would say this is the main tech stack that you have.
Okay. And how did find that compared to coming off using stuff like Kotlin, Flutter, and Dart, and all these slightly newer technologies, and then going to Goldman, which is probably a bit more
Yeah.
traditional technologies.
Yes. So first of all, I found it. So I'm okay with it. Yet I know the reasons why they use it. The thing is, I did not really like about these traditional approaches is that people who used to work a lot with it, they don't want to investigate another opportunities. And it could be a real problem. For example, when you want to update even Java version, you can face a pushback and telling that why do we need to go to Java, let's say 11, if we have Java 8? What is the killer feature of it, and etc. And it could be an issue, and it could be quite annoying, especially when you consider yourself very young and you know that Kotlin is super cool and it is easy to use. You still will face a pushback. Uh, yeah, this is a bit frustrating, but I know the reasons why they use Java, for example, and proprietary databases and etc. Yeah.
Yeah, and plus, like you were saying before, the sort of business that they're doing with hedge funds and customers' money, it's in the millions and even in the billions.
Yeah.
So something going wrong is not a matter of upsetting a few thousand people that have downloaded your app. It's
Yes.
a lot of money and a lot of and a big part of its reputation as well. So it is because it's not broke. Don't try and fix it, kind of thing.
Yeah. And another part, um, it is really important is that because Goldman Sachs is a very old organization, and they operate for a very long time in that business. They for sure they had a legacy code which you need to also to support, and you can't just go, for example, and convert all old Java code to the Kotlin. It will not work. So people will not uh, accept it because it is a very high risk transformation.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So it is not
And
about startup when I decided to let's say I will take Kotlin and Spring because I know it will work, yeah, and I don't have any legacy. So
yeah, when you've got legacy software, legacy frameworks, internal code, and technology, the move is a lot harder to move to something new, especially when Java isn't a dead language. It's still used, and there's still developers out there. But I'm guessing as a result, Goldman probably pays pretty well to get developers in stuff like Java, considering everything moving to Kotlin. Would you say that's the case?
first of all, I would argue with you that Java it is a dead language.
Okay.
So I don't think so, especially when we are speaking about backend application. If we are speaking about big data applications and big data backend and etc. Java is very much alive, and people still using it, and they will use it for sure. So let's say Spring has a new release right now, like Spring 3.0, if I understand right. Java long-term solution right now is Java 17, so it is not going anywhere. And like say like I think you heard it, there is a big data solution called Spark. Yeah, it was
Yes.
initially written in Scala, and they had a Scala API, but then they moved to Java support, and they now, if I am understand right, maybe I'm wrong. They contribute more to Java API because the main customers of Spark are Java developers, for example. This one can be biased because I'm using Spark right now and I'm a Java developer. Yes, so maybe another developers will tell you another story. But still, Java is very much alive. Yes, it is not used in Android, but it is still heavily used in enterprise businesses and let's say companies like Amazon. I would say 85% of code base is written in Java. Let's say Red Hat Enterprise, yes, so they wrote a lot of services for their Linux versions and etc. in Java.
Okay. And after that, for the
Mhm,
past 5 months, you've been at Amazon.
mhm.
What was the interview process like for Amazon? And
So
what did
yeah,
you have to do?
so as I said, it was pretty much not pretty much the same, but we can compare it. So I had one interview. It was just online without anyone, so it was just a questionnaire I needed to ask. I had like 20 minutes and questions about okay, let's say that you have this email chain with your manager and you are discussing a new feature. What would be the right questions to ask your manager? And you need to choose answers that are suitable for that situation. And another online task was to solve two algorithmic tasks. You also have like 30 or 40 minutes and you need to solve it on their platform. Uh, if this part is okay, then I was invited for online interview with a software developer from one of the departments. Then on this interview, they asked me a lot of questions about my experience, which is really interesting. So they really spent some time on my CV. They found some interesting, for example, tasks that I mentioned, and they asked some very specific questions about how one technology work or another. Why did you do that and that? Then they asking for sure what went wrong and why. You need to have an adequate answer for that. And then they also have I also had a task, algorithmic task to solve. Mm, After that, there was a very big interview with I think four. So it was a 4 hours interview. It was every hour you have a new interview. Yes, so uh, all of them were with algorithmic tasks except one. Another one was about design interview. So they give you some task to implement design of, let's say, Skype, for example. Let's say you are an architect and your task is to implement Skype application. What will you do? And you just need to draw some schemas. What services would be the first things you must implement? What are the problems? Uh, what can go wrong, and etc. What databases you will use? What if you decided not to use it? What you will use instead, and etc. So this was the process with Amazon.
Okay. And so, what does your job entail? At Amazon, what do you specifically do?
So I'm software development engineer in Alexa Shopping. I working with. I would say our team is like small research team. We are working with. We are working on customer experience, so we are trying to improve it. We collect data, all data that we can about Alexa communication with customers, and we try to predict what went wrong, what could be improved, and etc. So we are working heavily with data science guys. We creating some predictions pipeline for them. We are working heavily with them. Because of it, I was really interested to join Alexa shopping team because there was a chance to work with data science systems and build it.
Okay. And what like technologies are you using
Hmm.
at, you know, Amazon?
Amazon. Yes.
Apart from
So
AWS.
sorry.
Apart from AWS, the obvious
Yeah,
one.
yeah, yeah. So this is the cool thing about Amazon. So you can use almost anything in AWS, even lambdas, which in my opinion costs a lot, and people spend a lot of dollars on using lambdas. Um, Another thing that we are using is Java. That is why I was arguing with you about it. And actually, there are a lot of in-house tools that are written in Amazon and that are used internally. Like we have our own CI/CD solution. We don't use like GitLab or something like that. Goldman Sachs, by the way, used GitLab.
Okay.
Uh, so this kind of stuff is written inside Amazon, and so I heavily using Java. I heavily using Python. I works. I work with Spark clusters. Um, and databases like DynamoDB, I would say it is a part of AWS. Yes, SQS, queues, and etc. So it's like this kind of tech stack.
Okay, and how do, so you're saying they don't use stuff like GitLab, they have like in their own internal,
Hmm.
services that they've created. Are they created on top of any foundation or open source stuff that's not their own? Or is it purely their own? And how
Uh,
does it compare to stuff like GitLab?
so I think that it is purely their own. So let's say that Git server is created, yeah, and all other UI solutions among it, like pipelines, CI/CD pipelines, and etc. It is based on Amazon own code base. It's not based on any open source. At least it is my understanding.
Okay.
Some of it, by the way, for example, like infrastructure as code. When we are updating some AWS infrastructure, we are using CDK tool, uh, which in turn is using CloudFormation service. Uh, this tool, for example, was open sourced. So Amazon can open source their own tools if there is a, I would say, demand on it.
Okay. And have there ever been any talks of releasing some of those, tools that are like the competitors to GitLab? Because, obviously Amazon has AWS, which is derived from their own internal servers that they use.
Hmm.
And now
Hmm.
they, let anybody, I think Netflix uses AWS and a bunch of other companies around the
Hmm.
world use AWS. Is there any sort of talk about releasing those other services? Because I'm sure they're very good and they can compete.
So it is good, but I think, for example, GitLab is better. So I don't
Okay.
know if it is a good way of releasing. Let's say we have it is called pipelines in Amazon. So I don't know if to release pipeline as an open source solution is the good thing to do, because the UI is not very, convenient, and it is not very simple in use, I would say. So it is very specific. GitLab is more generic and I think more modern, I would say. So I don't know. And these tools are not a part of my team, so I don't know about plans of it. I'm just a customer for that team, so I'm using pipelines, but I'm not communicating with them. Yes, so I just use it as a platform. So I don't know what release plans do they have.
Okay. And so Amazon, Goldman, they're both titans in their
Mhm.
respective industries.
Mhm.
How do they differ in terms of working there?
Uh, yeah, good question. So I would say that in Goldman and Amazon, we have a different team structures. So in Amazon, they invented, maybe they are not the inventors of this, but it is called two pizza teams. So Amazon tries to have a team no more than 8 people, uh, because the communication are much easier. The team can behave like a completely independent and separate unit, and you can solve issues quicker inside your team. In Goldman Sachs, it is not like that. So I used to work in the team of 100, I think, people in common. So the security lending department, and London team was also quite big. It is like 20 people. So if you need to solve something, yeah, you need to speak with more people in Goldman Sachs than in Amazon. Another thing that Amazon has software development manager, for example, in the team. In Goldman Sachs, we don't have this separate. We don't have this. We didn't have this role separations usually. So I was a vice president, for example. I needed to do a project, and it is my problem how I would do it. So I needed to find myself what people I need to speak with, how I need to implement it, what release plan should I do, and etc. So this is the main difference. Amazon is more structured in this way, and for some people it is a plus, for some people it is a real minus. So let's say Goldman Sachs maybe for some people considered it as it has more freedom.
Okay.
And you can also try, yes, to work more as a manager or more as a developer in Goldman Sachs, and eventually start doing more, for example, manager centric things than software development centric things. Depends on you. Yeah. Uh,
Okay.
so I would say this is the main difference.
So, what would you recommend to people to learn and to do for anyone that wants to work at Goldman? Because there's a lot of people that would want to work at a company with that sort of reputation, that sort of old school company.
Um, so good question. You know that Goldman is a very big company, but I would say so. They are not software developer centered companies. So they are trader based companies. So their focus is more on traders than on software developers. And they, for example, Goldman Sachs does not build, let's say, client solutions, a lot of client solutions like mobile application and etc. So if you want to become a developer there, it is cool if you know some domain specific things about finance, and you are interested in backend services. If you would like to build financial services, distributed services, and etc. Yeah, so if you are interested in it, it is a very good place to work in.
Okay. And same question: what would you recommend learning and doing for anyone that wants to work at Amazon? Because obviously, it's part of Fang, or I guess you call
Hmm.
it Mang now.
Yeah.
Like, what would you recommend to really stand out?
Yes. So if you want to, so first of all, for both of these companies, you need to prepare yourself for interview. At least I'm not very talented software engineer, so I needed to spend some time with this lead code stuff and other things like that, just to warm up myself. Because I don't know, in Amazon you are not always creating a super complex algorithms. Yes, so you will just in some time you will forget all these algorithmic tasks. So you need to warm up yourself. And another thing is, if you want to work in Amazon, it is very important to to also to do, I would say, backend stuff because, for example, if you decided to, for example, AWS, yes, it is a very big part of business in Amazon, and it is very good if before you will try these services, they're usually for free if you just would like to build something small, yeah. So it is a very good way to learn something about Amazon is to try at least AWS services. You will understand how it is working, and it is heavily used in Amazon. So I think it is a good way to become familiar with this company.
Okay. Yeah, I can imagine, them asking you about, AWS, or have you used it, or, how would you approach things? And if you understand, the main technology that they've already got that, can be used by
So
developers.
this is the interesting thing. Sorry for interruption. They are not asking about specifics.
Okay.
So they are asking usually their questions are very generic. And you even can choose any languages you want to solve this any algorithmic tasks. But usually the main choice in these companies are Java and Python. In Goldman Sachs, Java and Python were very popular. Are very popular, and in Amazon too. So I would suggest to be familiar with these two languages. It would be just easier for you to start with. But Amazon, they have, I would say, it's like a principle. So they are not asking some specifics about AWS. For example, if you tell that um, I was building a distributed application and my services were communicated via message queue, they will not ask you why you, for example, and it was SQSQ, they will not ask you how SQSQ is implemented. Yes, so and stuff like that. They will more ask you about generic question, how message brokers are working and etc. So
Okay. And as a developer, what would be your biggest regret?
in Amazon,
No, no, no. I mean,
uh,
just in general.
in general,
In your development career so far.
that I did not become a millionaire, and CTO.
I mean, apart from that, so something a bit more, actionable, so people can learn.
So I learned that as a software developer, you need to do a lot of routine job, a lot of routine work. So when you gain a lot of when you gain not a lot of in my case, but some experience, I would say 80% of tasks, yeah, you have done it before. So a lot of things eventually become routine for you. You still will have some new things to learn and try and to do, yeah, but big part of your job will be just to do routine tasks. It is sometimes frustrating.
Okay. And what advice, so not as a regret thing, but what advice would you give as a developer to someone, let's say, who's starting out in the career, or, is beginning to just learn programming? What
Mhm.
would you say to help accelerate, their journey?
um, Pet projects, I would say, especially if you started, yeah, learning it. So pet projects would be the best way, especially maybe it is pet is not very good for it right now. For example, if you try to improve your own life, for example, let's say you want to download a movie from some torrent, yeah, and watch it on your TV. So maybe you can buy like Raspberry Pi, set up some application on Raspberry Pi that will download this movie and send it to your TV and etc. So something that will improve your life. It will help a lot. You-
Okay, that's definitely an interesting one.
mm,
And so, going off that, would you say it's important for people that are beginning out in programming to start, creating projects, again, not projects that they're going to try and sell, but to improve their portfolio? And do you think it really matters if their projects initially aren't that good, and if they put it online on, let's say, GitHub, for example? Do you think it matters, or should they wait till it's a bit better?
Um, good question. I think it is good if you posted it and continue to update it. So it does not mean that does not matter if it was bad in the beginning, but if you keep working on it, it, it eventually become better. Yes, it becomes better. So I don't think that it is a real problem. Yeah. Another
Okay.
thing that maybe, in my opinion, works better than GitLab. So when you push some code to GitLab, because right now everyone is doing it, yes. So uh, it is not very competitive thing. But what is very competitive, in my opinion, especially for example, if you would like to become a mobile developer, if you create an application and you released it in for example Google Play, if you're Android developer, yeah, on in App Store. So if you have finished some application, released it, and especially if you have some customers who are using it, this is a very this is, I would say, the super plus, because people who will interview you, they will be for sure interested in how in your end-to-end experience and how you work with customers, and they will know that your application has some value, and it is a very competitive thing. So I mean, you can compete with a lot of developers if you have this portfolio like that.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like
Yeah.
it, it'll definitely help, when you're releasing titles, the employers, the people who are interviewing you, they're going to be interested, like you're saying, how you went from the idea stage all the way to the end, how you dealt with the uploading process, all those different things, because
Yeah.
they probably see a lot of programmers that know how to do the coding, but that's never done the starting process of, if not coming up with the idea, but just, fleshing the idea out on paper a bit and expanding on something that doesn't exist, and then post idea and actually reiterating the idea.
Yeah.
So I think it's also useful for people. It's kind of like an extended GitHub portfolio where they can see that, okay, you released an app and then you got version 1.1, version 1.2, and if the change log is also, instead of just saying improvements, if you have a list of the changes and you can maybe document it in some sort of Word document or PDF to showcase to your potential employer that, okay, the first version looked like this, but then the second version looked like this, and the third version looked like this, so they can actually see progression.
Yeah, and I forgot to actually tell about another example, which maybe, especially for very tech first companies, are the best approach in my opinion. So the thing is that when you push some code in GitHub, so there can be a problem that there are a lot of developers who are publish code for code. So their code is doing nothing. It has no value in the community and etc. But they have a very fat GitHub profiles and etc. But in reality, no one reuses this code. So I personally don't think that it is the good plus, for example, to UCV. Yeah? But what would be a great plus if you will contribute in some open source project? For example, you are studying Java. You can participate, for example, in Spring framework. It is completely open source. They always looking for people who would like to contribute. Even if you are a junior developer and have little experience, there you will find some tasks, some bugs that you can solve, and you really will contribute to the very popular project. And it is also very good plus, in my opinion. Companies like, I don't know, Red Hat or Amazon or companies like that, they will value it for sure.
Oh yeah, for sure. And, contributing to just any sort of project, and open source projects are some of the easiest ones to do. And what I would say, going further onto that, it might not just be directly pushing code. It might be, if there's a project out there and maybe the resources, the wiki, the guides aren't the
Yeah,
best.
yeah.
You could create your own video tutorials, showcasing the code, which showcases your technical ability to use it, your ability to create some sort of readme or some guides on top of projects, because that's another thing that employers want, is somebody that can write code, but that can document it through comments, that could document it through readme files, and will actually do that. Because there's a
Yes.
lot of developers that won't do it. So if you can showcase that, you've got a project portfolio, but you've also created some extra, resources for the community. It definitely, helps an employer to say, okay, this person does those other things that developers don't, and also they could be the type of person that might make internal documentation, because you see that internally as well. There, you'll have developers. They'll be, making loads of money. The company will, but there's no clear coding standards, or there's no clear, processes, or there's no guides. Every time there's a new hire, they're going over stuff that should take an hour, but they end up taking a week, to go over it, just because they don't have a proper guide for everything.
Yes, yeah, I agree. And internal documentation is very important things, and usually, very often it is outdated, and it is a very
yes.
big problem. Yeah.
Yeah, outdated, minimal, and probably written by the person who already knew how to actually use the
Yeah.
technology or the framework. So they probably missed steps out. So, like, if you're coming from that perspective of you don't know that much, that's also another thing. If you go to a company and you're working there, you're doing your day job. You obviously make sure you get your tasks done. But then on top of that, if you want to excel in that company and as a in your career, you could do documentation, and then once it's ready, show it to your manager, see what they think. They might have some suggestions, and then they might want you to showcase it to the team, and then be open. Even if you're not a presenter or you don't like presenting, be open for that opportunity, because they'll like that you're willing to talk in front of people. There's a lot of programmers that aren't, and try and pass it off to someone else.
Yeah, yeah. And by the way, in Amazon, it is well organized, I would say. So you do a lot of writing in Amazon. It is one of the things that developers are doing in it. So, for example, if you want to do something new, or you want to replace one feature with another, you at least should create a small document where you explain why you want to do this, what introduce several possible solutions, and then recommend what you want to use, and then you must discuss it with the team, and after that you can go and implement it. And because of it, you will always have a document for the next developers why we decided to go like this. And it is quite important, because sometimes you can come to the new place and see the code and ask why it was written like that. I would do it much better, but when you got a document with some historical reasons and etc., you start realizing that okay, it makes sense why it was done like that.
Yeah, and also sometimes it's made a certain way due to time restrictions or resource restrictions, and it hasn't been updated, and maybe the person's left now. So that's
Yeah,
another big one. I've gone and worked for a client where they've got a system, it needs updating or migrating or something needs doing with it, and you ask them how it works, and they say, "Oh, I don't know. Somebody came in and made it. They had no documentation. They got paid and they left, and they have no contact with them anymore."
yeah,
And
yeah,
especially from a company perspective, that's going to cost them a lot of money, because let's say they get a contractor in, that person's going to have to figure out how that system works first before they can even do any meaningful work. And if you're creating documentation, hopefully a company will recognize, okay, they're creating resources that if they're no longer around, or even if they're just busy, for example, they could be busy on like a project that needs to be released or updated, or something's going wrong with a client, so they might just be busy, and there's resources that, let's say, a new hire or somebody who's just generally new to the team and the project can access and figure out, okay, this is how I set it up, this is how I use these functions, these are the files that I need to look at if I want to look at maybe the user system, for example, and how it's hooked up into other files, especially when there are hundreds or thousands of files, maybe millions of database records. It can become really cumbersome, and it can take weeks or even longer sometimes to figure stuff out. So yeah, resources, great for yourself, great for the team, and it's de-risking it effectively for the company. And that's a big win, because the company always wants to de-risk the investment, and them paying you and hiring you is an investment.
Yeah, yeah. And another thing about, I would say, test environment is also very important to have a document where you describe how you can, run your application in some test isolated environment. Usually, I saw situations when you don't have documents for it, so you have only production environment, and actually that's all. And
Yeah.
this is a real problem.
Oh yeah, for sure. Okay, so that's all the questions that I've got for now. I've got one last question, which is just like a fun generic question that I like
Mhm.
to ask, and it's just great to hear what people's answer is. Does money buy you happiness?
No. So in I would say like that. No, but in London it helps you live more in more comfortable places.
In London, definitely it helps a bit more than some
Yeah,
places.
yeah. In London it helps a bit more than I would say in St.
It,
Petersburg.
it,
Yeah,
it helps you to eat.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah. Uh,
Okay. So, like, again, just talking about that, expand on that answer of no. Like, what's your opinion of money and happiness when a lot of people do, try and relate money to happiness?
uh, so yeah, if to be honest, it is quite complex question. Yeah, you can, I think, you can spend a lot of time on speaking about it. I would say like that. So when we moved to London, for example, uh, I well, my wife got pregnant, and now we have a kid. So, and to see my kid, that is my kid is very happy. Yes, it is. It is a happiness for me. Yes, so I'm very concentrated on it right now. So, and you don't need a lot of money to make him happy, for example. So yeah, so you start thinking that maybe I would spend more time with him than, for example, to do extra hours on my work. So something like that. But yeah, if you don't have home and you you don't have anything to eat, you must earn money. Yes, so it becomes more important for you than everything else. So yeah. And if to be honest, for now, and I hope it will stay the same, software development roles are well paid, usually. Yeah, so maybe it is not millions, yeah, but it's still good wage. So I'm okay. Yeah, so I think that if you are doing something that is interesting, yes, not for money, then in eventually, at least in software development, then eventually you will succeed and you will gain money. Maybe not straight away, yeah, but maybe in some time.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of opportunities within programming and software engineering, where, like you're saying, initially you might just be picking up the skills for 10 years, working at companies, learning stuff, making contacts, and then just developing your skills. And then you might want to go make something, work at a startup, build your career up in a company. There's a lot of opportunity. Whereas
Yeah,
if you're working in some local company, or do some other job, it's a bit more limited, and you do have to look for other avenues to make money that aren't necessarily directly related.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So at least in our, business in IT, you can, yeah. So it is possible to um, earn less in the beginning, but do the thing you like, and in the end, you still will get your good salary and other stuff like that. You just need to, be dedicated and do what you like and what is interesting for you.
Oh yeah,
I
for
can't say
sure.
that but I can't say that every job is like that. So we are just lucky for now. Yeah.
Yeah. You need to find the right role, and just keep at it. And like you're saying, you can start to even if you don't start a business, and you just keep within software. As long as you know, okay, I need to jump onto this technology now. It's coming up, Kotlin's coming up, or Swift, or React, or whatever it is, and then move companies if you need be as well, because there's a lot of opportunities out there, and because it's so remote.
Yes.
That you can work for a company that's not local. Whereas if you're like a builder making houses and you're not going to travel, the opportunities are very limited. There's probably a handful of companies that you can work for outside of doing it yourself. And that's obviously going to be very difficult if you don't have money and contacts. But whereas as a programmer, there's thousands of companies that you could work for remote, and remote is a very big part of the industry now. Actually, what's your opinion on remote versus in office working?
Oh, so I'm very positive about remote working. So, and this is the thing I didn't like about Goldman Sachs. For example, I think it was CEO of the company, David Solomon. He told that everyone should move back to the office after COVID finished. So I don't understand why software developers should return to the office if they can do their work in the same way. Yeah, if they can be productive at home. And yeah, so I mean, not every job can be like that. Yeah, but our job can be. So why not to use it? And right now in Amazon, I am very happy about it because, for example, my manager, he lives in Manchester even, and he is working remotely. So we don't have any problems with remote working. And I would say that our team is very productive. Yeah, and we're doing things, and there is no problem with that.
Oh yeah,
But
for
the in remote thing there is another problem. For example, if you are living in UK and you are the tax resident here,
Mhm.
if I remember right, you can't work more than 3 months outside of UK. Then you will get some problems with taxes. I'm not sure if I'm right here, but there are some problems with it. So remote work is also sometimes not possible. I mean, remote in terms of worldwide, yes, that you can go to Africa, for example, work from there for British company and etc. Uh,
I'm not too sure about that. I mean, the reality is, if you're in the UK, it doesn't matter where the company is based. If you reside in the UK, then you have to abide by the UK tax laws.
yeah, maybe, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, if
So
you're working if you are not a sole trader, yes, or you are working like me, for example, you were hired like Amazon with Amazon, yeah.
yeah.
So I think that I could not live in Russia and be hired in London Amazon. So it is not possible, I think. So
Probably be difficult. Yes.
yeah, so I should move to London before that. Yeah.
Yes. If you want to do that on, because otherwise they're outsourcing, and then that's a separate thing
Yeah,
entirely.
separate scene. So it's like a separate company. Yeah.
Yeah, then they would actually, you would be a contractor that's been outsourced. Otherwise, you wouldn't have, a full time job at Amazon earning £50,000 but live in
Mm-hmm.
Russia. It
Yeah,
just probably would not happen. You might not live in London. You might live in Scotland, or you might live,
in
in
Manchester.
Plymouth
Yeah.
or in Birmingham or Manchester or wherever. But you're still UK resident and have, the visa and the permits required to
Yeah.
work
Yeah.
here. So yeah, that's definitely something very important. But it does give opportunities that otherwise you wouldn't have. Because I had somebody on the podcast a few weeks ago that lived in India,
Mm-hmm.
and where he lived, there wasn't many software companies. But because of remote working, especially because of COVID, that made the world go remote, he was able to get a job at a big company on the in a company that was like hours away drive, that he
Mm-hmm.
couldn't
Mm-hmm.
have got otherwise. So yeah, those opportunities are fantastic.
Yes. I completely agree.
Yeah. Okay, so that's all my questions done. I just want to, thank you, Kirill, for coming on the podcast. It was really great talking to you.
Thanks a lot to you too. Yeah.
Yeah, so if you enjoy the podcast, guys, feel free to give it a 5-star rating on your platform like Spotify, for example. I'll get any social links or anything that Kirill wants to share. I'll put them in the description, and I'll see everyone in the next episode. Bye-bye.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Bye.